Women shouldn't work. They shouldn't have jobs. Now that is a pretty outrageous thing to say by any means. And me saying that is probably a little bit dangerous. Well, for me, anyway. But I ask you, hear me out, because I think I have a very convincing argument as to why women shouldn't work. A certain group of women anyway, and that group is the women who have just become, or are just about to become, or are considering becoming mothers. This is my argument here. The Feminist Revolution, although it was fantastic for women, has been absolutely disastrous for kids, for children, for you, for me, for the generation before us, for our generation and the next. It has been an absolute disaster. Now, I know me saying this will put you on the back foot immediately, and you're going to disagree immediately because I would disagree with what I'm saying as well. But just stick with me. For some context, the Feminist Revolution was an extremely important part of every woman who is alive today's life. It emerged in the late 19th and 20th centuries, advocating women's rights, including the women's suffrage movement, more education and employment opportunities, basically just being treated like an equal, which is fantastic. And that is how all women in the Western world today have all their rights, the exact same rights as men. And I think that is fantastic. Who does not think that is absolutely fantastic? If you show me someone who thinks like that, I'll show you a fucking idiot. Then came second wave feminism, reproductive rights, workplace equality, and social liberation, quickly followed by intersectionality and third wave and fourth wave feminism, where we are now, where it's all about men being the devil and we need to make men suffer, etc., etc., which is not great. But at least the first couple of waves of feminism were fantastic. All of this is wonderful for women, all right? Equal pay, equal rights, all of that type of stuff, wonderful. In what world should a young girl not be able to grow up and think, I want to do this with my life, and not be able to do it because she has a vagina? That is ridiculous. And thankfully, we live in a world right now where women can do absolutely anything they want. How good. But everything comes with a cost. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And with women in the workforce, children suffer. And they suffer greatly. Of course, before I go any further, it is important that we are able to define what a woman is.
Now listen, Roseanne, let me ask you the most difficult question in the world, apparently. What is a woman?
You know that you're a woman.
Yes.
What is that?
Define what a woman is.
And thankfully, the people of Scotland have done that for us. Congratulations. I didn't think that would happen in Scotland because you have some of the most ridiculous laws, like your hate speech laws and all that bullshit. But you actually nailed this one. Well done. A woman is an adult human female, biologically born a woman. I'm glad we could fucking get to the bottom of that. Now, if you are an adult human female, the vast majority of you will one day be able to have or already have had a child. Now, what I'm about to say may sound like I'm just going against everything that I've just said, that feminism was great, it's fantastic to have equal opportunities, but it's a reality. You should, if you are a female, if you are going to be a mother at any time in the next 15 years, you should absolutely 100% put your family and your child ahead of your career. Why? Well, there's 1,000 different reasons. And if you don't, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Okay? It doesn't make you a bad mother, because a lot of us, what I'm about to list as these horrible things that happen, a lot of us can't avoid it. We can't avoid it at all. That's our modern society. I mean, maybe there's ways around it, but what are they and how do you do it? And some of those things you have to be extremely lucky. But I'll get to that. You cannot have children as a woman and have a career too. You cannot put 100% effort into both. And you should not put 100% effort into your career. You should be putting it into your child, because if you don't, then they are going to be absolute damaged goods, perhaps for the rest of their lives. Around the world right now, we have schemes in place to help women have time off work when they have a baby. But for the most part, that is nowhere near enough time. America has 0 weeks. That's fucking horrific. Australia has something like 22 weeks. That sounds pretty good. For fathers, it's 2 weeks, which is ridiculous. But it's nowhere near enough. We need to be providing women with 3 years of time off work, which sounds like an economical nightmare, and that is because it is. But if we want the best for our kids, that's something we need to fucking work out, right? That's enough of, skirting around the point of this video. Let's dive deep and take a fucking bite out of it, all right? I was recently watching a podcast, okay, Diary of a CEO, with this guy, Stephen Bartlett, and he had a guest on called Erica Commissar. Now, Erica is a psychoanalyst. Okay, she's also an author. She authored a book recently called Being There. And it's all about the first 3 years and how those first 3 years can predict what will happen to a child as it gets older. And the biggest point of that book is being there. And it's a book dedicated to mothers and showing you that you need to be there as a mother. And if you're not, then that baby will suffer. That is literally the point of this video. Okay, you can say that I'm being sexist. You can say that my views are at least traditional gender roles. There's a reason traditional gender roles exist. And in this case, particularly, you may disagree with other ones, maybe I do as well. But in this case, they exist because they are the best practice. We need to have a society where mothers stay at home with kids. Otherwise, those children will suffer. Let me get to my points on this, okay? Let's start with something as simple as skin-to-skin contact. We don't seem to have that as much anymore, or at least it doesn't happen for as long. Did you know in a baby's brain, when it is born, its synapses fire like the 4th of July, like New Year's Eve fireworks, when a mother looks at it lovingly? The more a mother does that over the first 3-year period, the better that child will be. But unfortunately, when a mother has to go back to work, the baby is dropped somewhere, which I think personally could very well be the worst place for children. And that is daycare, childcare. Not so much for 2, 3, 4-year-olds. 2's maybe a little bit young, but 3 or 4-year-olds. And once again, please be a fucking adult about this. I know the vast majority of us have to work, so you have to do it, all right? But just stick with me. If you drop your 6-month-old or younger at daycare, you are harming them. Now, that's a very tough pill for a lot of people to swallow because that's something you do every day. Now, you may have heard that it's fantastic for socialization for children. That is not true at all. Children at that age do not socialize. They play near other children. They're not socializing with them. You may have also heard that it's great for their immune system, that they have gastro every 3 weeks and they have the flu every 4 weeks and they're just constantly fucking sick. That's not how it works either. In fact, it harms their immune system to a point, particularly when they're young. But the most damaging part is actually what you can't see. It's something called cortisol. It's a stress hormone. We all have it. We all excrete it in our bodies. And the more stressed we are, the more of it we have. It's very important for a young person, particularly in their first 2 years, to basically have fuck all of this. None. Zero. Well, not zero, but as close to zero as humanly possible. It is our job as parents, particularly mothers, to make sure that your baby is not stressed. Okay? Sending them to childcare exacerbates this stress immensely. There has been many studies done on salivary cortisol. All right, the cortisol in the saliva of a child, particularly young children at daycare. What they notice is an extreme spike, and this spike goes for the entire day. Naturally, as humans, when we wake up, we get a big spike of cortisol, almost like a pre-workout to fire us up for the day. Then it sort of drifts down when our body systems are all working. When you drop your kid there, the 6-month-old particularly, when they're older, as I've said, that's not as bad, it's probably fine. But when they're very, very young, they have this epiphany, this realization that you've left, mum's left. That's why they're in tears. They're broken. They think you've left them. They think you've died. And that salivary cortisol shows this. It goes through the roof for the entire day. What does this do? Well, it affects a part of the brain called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is all about stress. It's all about the fight or flight response. Now, for a young child going to daycare, okay, super stressed all day, then it gets home, and then mum and dad are fighting, even more stress. You should never fight in front of your kids. You shouldn't fight at all in a relationship. That's not healthy. Don't believe the shit that you've been lied to about that fighting is healthy in a relationship, okay? You believe that because you've been told it and your parents did it, but it is not, all right? You need to sort that shit out. Or you've just failed in your relationship. You never married your best friend. That's the problem, right? That's why I wrote about it in my book. Okay, anyway, your child gets home after a big stressful day at childcare thinking their mother has died. They get picked up. They may be a little bit relieved, but they're fucking exhausted, all right? Their brain cannot comprehend the stress that they've been through. Then you're fighting at home. And then it gets to the afternoon, maybe they just watch some TV or whatever. And if they're under the age of 2, they probably shouldn't be doing that. But whatever, that's a whole nother fucking argument, right? Or at least they shouldn't be watching fucking Cocomelon. Then it's time for bed and you're sleep training this child at this point. You're putting them in their bed and letting them cry themselves to sleep because your parents did that. And that's what someone on Instagram said, no, mama. Let you fill your own cup. Leave your baby in there to scream. If you leave your baby in to scream themselves to sleep, that is it's a ridiculous thing to do as a parent. And if you do that in the 90s, then okay, you could be forgiven because you didn't have this knowledge. But we have this knowledge now that is a horrendous thing to do. It's the same as if your baby's on the ground, screaming, crying, saying, pick me up. Gabor Mate talks about this. Mate. He talks about this by picking children up. They learn from that moment. If you don't pick them up when they scream, that's a lifetime of trust issues. That's a lifetime of knowing that if they are desperate for help, no one's coming. They scream themselves to sleep. That's stress. That's the most stressful day you could imagine. This little baby is exhausted. On top of that, they're teething at the same time. And on top of that, they've got gas pains and all that shit. What does this do? Well, this atrophies the amygdala. It makes it dormant. It turns it off. And thus, we have an amygdala, we have a brain that cannot understand, cannot compute. It has failed its ability to deal with the fight or flight response, leading to anxiety, depression, ADHD later in life. Is this why we are seeing so many children with ADHD? Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, the amount of people diagnosed with ADHD has a lot to do with TikTok and everyone thinking they have it. Anxiety and depression, that's a whole nother one. Is that why we have so many kids with anxiety and depression, mental health issues? Is that why suicide rates are increasing amongst children? Maybe. Is it all because we have, or you have, followed suit with what everyone else is doing around you? Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't make it correct. We are seeing so much science, so many studies done on these exact things that we are talking about, and the answer keeps coming back that we are doing the wrong thing. You add on top of that all the other interventions that we have for children, and you start seeing maybe why we have a crisis on our hands with our young people. If I can go back to the elevated cortisol for a hot second back in daycare, did you know that elevated cortisol, stress, makes you more open to illness, to infection? Your body can't fight them off. So by having your child in daycare, perhaps the reason they're always sick isn't because they're constantly surrounded by other sick kids. I mean, chicken or the egg, what comes first? It's because they're extremely stressed and then they get sick and then they pass it on to other stressed kids. It's a fucking horrible recipe, right? And when you leave your baby, and I probably should have added this in there as well, when you leave your baby at childcare and they think you've died or left, that's attachment problems. They have that for the rest of their lives. This is why when you pick your kid up from daycare and they run over to you or they start crying, they can't believe it. You're back, you've lived. They think this every day. They are absolutely terrorized with the fact that you have left them. But Again, not that I have to say this because you all know this, and if you are still thinking that I'm trying to shame women for working, no. What I am doing is saying if you can't take this information on board, then you are selfish. Like, that's it. We need to be able to take things on board. All of this could be reconciled by mothers staying home. Now, how do you do that in a modern society where no one can fucking afford anything? I don't know. That's not what this video is about. I'm not coming up with answers. I'm coming up with evidence to show you that there is a problem. What the answer is, I don't fucking know. And it's not to shame people. It's just to take on this new piece of information. That's what you should be doing from this video. You should be listening and going, okay, well, that sounds very interesting. And also, most of these opinions, if not all of these opinions, aren't opinions. They are just fact, right? There is a lot more smarter people than us fucking idiots interpreting data and saying, okay, well, this is the answer. This is why this is happening. And if you sit there and you go, no, this is my favorite argument, right? I love this shit. When people say, no, I went to daycare and I grew up all right, and they've taken fucking antidepressants in the morning and anti-anxiety medication in the afternoon and ADHD, like, what the fuck are you talking about, dickhead? You didn't grow up all right at all. If this conversation, and this is what it is, I want to know your opinions down below, but if this conversation gives you an existential crisis as a woman, and probably it should as a father or as a man as well, then good. Being an adult isn't meant to be easy. You should be faced with hard truths, difficult things to swallow all the time. And if you're not, you're living in a very either ignorant world or a very easy world. And that's not helpful for anybody. And you may also be thinking, hang on, this is this comedian guy, Isaac Butterfield, who tours the world, go me, and makes money from doing that shit. Makes money from YouTube. And he doesn't have to work a real job. Now, okay, yeah, sure, I don't work normal hours, no doubt. I work very weird hours. I work hard. Don't get me wrong. I work very hard, but I'm aware that I won't say I'm in a privileged position because I worked hard to get here, but I am in a position that not a lot of people are. And that's just, that's just me, right? But I did make this decision to get to this position. I decided that I wanted to do exactly what I'm doing right now, and I worked hard and I got there, meaning that the vast majority of us could probably do something in your chosen field as well. Anyway, I want to wrap this video up by saying this. If you're a mother and if you put yourself ahead of your child, then you are a bad mother. If you're a father, and you do the same thing, you're a bad father. Most of us watching this are either parents now or going to be parents at some point. And if that is you, you need to understand that your life ceases to exist in the exact way that it was previously to children. And it's important because obviously as a parent, you have to look after the physical well-being of your child. But we don't seem to look after the mental well-being, the psychological well-being like we should. And that all starts from, as Erica Commissar put it, being there, particularly for mothers. Now, the reason that I single out mothers in this video is because mothers play a different role. They play a completely different role to fathers. And you need to be there as a mother constantly, all the time. You are your baby's rock. You are everything to that child. And we have been conditioned over millions of years as human beings to be that way. You're not going to break it in a generation. You're not going to break it in 10 generations. You need to be there as a mother. And if you are in a rush to get back to work, that is not in the best interests of your child. Now, again, I'll say it for the 15th fucking time. What else do? You have to go back to work, right? But it is not in the best interests of your child, which means the next generation isn't having its parents look after them in the way they should. If this has been a painful video for you, then that's probably a good thing, but also it's a shame. I don't want to make videos that make people upset, but I feel very passionately about this because we have kids that are growing up to be absolute messes as adults. And maybe this is one of the reasons. There's probably a lot of reasons, right? Everyone blames screen time and everyone blames fucking technology and music and movies and all that shit. But no one looks at what the parents are doing. And I think that is the most important part. Be there for your kids. That's as simple as you could put it. Same goes for dads. If you're fucking at work all the time, right? Obviously someone has to work, but if you're there all the time and you don't see your kids, then that's not a good thing either, all right? They're going to learn, particularly if you have kids between like 3 and 6 years old, thereabouts. Well, maybe 0 and 6 years old. If you just have kids, man, and you're not there, that's a shit father thing to do. You may as well not even exist. You might see in comment sections on Facebook, I see it all the time. My wife's a part of this group called the Newcastle Mums Group on Facebook. And constantly, no matter, even if some mother was on there and she said, I fucking vaping in front of my child, and they're like, don't worry about it, fill your cup, you got to look after you two. And yeah, you got to look after the mother, no doubt, all right? Postpartum is fucking tough, very, very tough. Your hormones are a fucking mess. No doctor out there will test your hormones. The medical industry is fucked, all right, when it comes to post-birth, pre-birth, anyway, that's a whole nother video. But there's no one in there saying, hey, like, I know it sucks, but you need to look after your baby as number one. Because if someone said that, they'll be like, don't you shame this mother. Well, I'm sorry. If you're doing something wrong, someone should either be educated or shamed a little bit. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East with extinct. Tulu au revoir. Bye-bye.